Hello listeners and welcome back to our channel Storyteller. So, I hope that all of you are doing great and all of you are eager to learn something new. That's why today I am here with our new story, Aladdin Part 6. We have already covered Part 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in our previous video. So now let's start with our 6th part. But before moving towards our story, if you like my voice or like this story, so please do subscribe to our channel. So now let's move towards it. In the meantime, the festivities in honor of the princess' marriage were conducted in the Sultan's palace with great magnificence. The ceremonies were at last brought to a conclusion, and the princess and the son of the vizier retired to the bedchamber prepared for them. No sooner had they entered it and dismissed their attendants than the genie, the faithful slave of the lamp, to the great amazement and alarm of the bride and bridegroom, took up the bed and, by an agency invisible to them, transported it in an instant into Aladdin's chamber, where he sat it down. "Remove the bridegroom," said Aladdin to the genie, "and keep him a prisoner till tomorrow dawn, and then return with him here." On Aladdin being left alone with the princess, he endeavored to assuage her fears and explained to her the trick practiced upon him by the Sultan her father. He then laid himself down beside her, putting a drawn scimitar between them to show that he was determined to secure her safety and to treat her with the utmost possible respect. At break of day, the genie appeared at the appointed hour, bringing back the bridegroom, whom by breathing upon he had left motionless and entranced at the door of Aladdin's chamber during the night, and at Aladdin's command transported the coach with the bride and bridegroom on it by the same invisible agency into the palace of the Sultan. At the instant that the genie had sat down the coach with the bride and bridegroom in their own chamber, the Sultan came to the door to offer his good wishes to his daughter. The Grand Vizier's son, who was almost perspired with cold by standing in his thin undergarment all night, no sooner heard the knocking at the door than he got out of bed and ran into the robing chamber, where he had undressed himself the night before. The Sultan, having opened the door, went to the bedside and kissed the princess on the forehead, but was extremely surprised to see her look so melancholy. She only cast at him a sorrowful look, expressive of great affliction. He suspected there was something extraordinary in this silence, and thereupon went immediately to the Sultaness' apartment, told her in what a state he found the princess, and how she had received him. "Sir," said the Sultaness, "I will go and see her. She will not receive me in the same manner." The princess received her mother with sighs and tears, and signs of deep dejection. At last, upon her pressing on her the duty of telling her all her thoughts, she gave to the sultaness a precise description of all that happened to her during the night, on which the sultaness enjoined on her the necessity of silence and discretion, as no one would give credence to so strange a tale. The Grand Vizier's son, elated with the honor of being the Sultan's son-in-law, kept silence on his part, and the events of the night were not allowed to cast the least gloom on the festivities on the following day. In continued celebration of the royal marriage. When night came, the bride and bridegroom were again attended to their chamber with the same ceremonies as on the preceding evening. Aladdin, knowing that this would be so, had already given his commands to the genie of the lamp, and no sooner were they alone than their bed was removed in the same mysterious manner as on the preceding evening, and having passed the night in the same unpleasant way, they were in the morning conveyed to the palace of the Sultan. Scarcely had they been replaced in their apartment when the Sultan came to make his compliments to his daughter. The princess could no longer conceal from him the unhappy treatment she had been subjected to, and told him all that had happened, as she had already related it to her mother. The Sultan, on hearing these strange tidings, consulted with the Grand Vizier, and finding from him that his son had been subjected by an invisible agency to even worse treatment, he determined to declare the marriage cancelled and all the festivities, which were yet to last for several days, countermanded and terminated. This sudden change in the mind of the Sultan gave rise to various speculations and reports. Nobody but Aladdin knew the secret, and he kept it with the most scrupulous silence. Neither the Sultan nor the Grand Vizier, who had forgotten Aladdin and his request, had the least thought that he had any hand in the strange adventures that befell the bride and bridegroom. On the very day that the 3 months contained in the Sultan's promise expired, the mother of Aladdin again went to the palace and stood in the same place in the divan. The Sultan knew her again and directed his vizier to have her brought before him. After having prostrated herself, she made answer in reply to the Sultan, "Sir, I came at the end of 3 months to ask of you the fulfillment of the promise you made to my son." The Sultan little thought the request of Aladdin's mother was made to him in earnest, or that he would hear any more of the matter. He therefore took counsel with his vizier, who suggested that the Sultan should attach such conditions to the marriage that no one of the humble condition of Aladdin could possibly fulfill. In accordance with this suggestion of the vizier, the Sultan replied to the mother of Aladdin Good woman, it is true sultans out to abide by their word, and I am ready to keep mine by making your son happy in marriage with the princess my daughter. But as I cannot marry her without some further proof of your son being able to support her in royal estate, you may tell him I will fulfill my promise as soon as he shall send me 40 trays of messy gold, full of the same sort of jewels you have already made me a present of, and carried by the like number of black slaves who shall be led by as many young and handsome white slaves, all dressed magnificently. On these conditions, I am ready to bestow the princess, my daughter, upon him. Therefore, good woman, go and tell him so, and I will wait till you bring me his answer. Aladdin's mother prostrated herself a second time before the Sultan's throne and retired. On her way home, she laughed within herself at her son's foolish imagination. Where, said she, can he get so many large gold trays and such precious stone to fill them? It is altogether out of his power, and I believe he will not be much pleased with my embassy this time. When she came home, full of these thoughts, she told Aladdin all the circumstances of her interview with the Sultan and the conditions on which he consented to the marriage. The Sultan expects your answer immediately, said she, and then added, laughing, I believe he may wait long enough. Not so long, mother, as you imagine, replied Aladdin. This demand is a merry trifle, and will prove no bar to my marriage with the princess. I will prepare at once to satisfy his request. Aladdin retired to his own apartment and summoned the genie of the lamp and required him to immediately prepare and present the gift before the Sultan closed his morning audience according to the terms in which it had been prescribed. The genie professed his obedience to the owner of the lamp and disappeared. Within a very short time, a train of 40 black slaves, led by the same number of white slaves, appeared opposite the house in which Aladdin lived. Each black slave carried on his head a basin of messy gold full of pearls, diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. Aladdin then addressed to his mother, Madam, pray lose no time. Before the Sultan and the Divan rise, I would have you return to the palace with this present as the dowry demanded for the princess, that he may judge my diligence and exactness of the ardent and sincere desire I have to procure myself to the honor of his alliance. As soon as this magnificent procession with Aladdin's mother at its head had begun to march from Aladdin's house, the whole city was filled with the crowds of people desirous to see so grand a sight. The graceful bearing, elegant form, and wonderful likeness of each slave, their grave walk at an equal distance from each other, the lustre of their jeweled grills, and the brilliancy of the aigrettes of precious stones in their turbans excited the greatest admiration in the spectators. As they had to pass through several streets to the palace, the whole length of the way was lined with files of spectators. Nothing indeed was ever seen so beautiful and brilliant in the Sultan's palace, and the richest robes of the emirs of his court were not to be compared to the costly dresses of these slaves, whom they supposed to be kings. As the Sultan, who had been informed of their approach, had given orders for them to be admitted, they met with no obstacle but went into the divan in regular order, one part turning to the right and the other to the left. After they were all entered and had formed a semicircle before the Sultan's throne, the black slaves laid the golden trays on the carpet, prostrated themselves, touching the carpet with their foreheads, and at the same time the white slaves did the same. When they rose, the black slaves uncovered the trays, and then all stood with their arms crossed over their breasts. Because this story is too long, so rest of the part of this story we will discuss in our next part. Till then, stay tuned with us. I hope that all of you like this story. So please do like, share, subscribe and comment on our channel. Thanks for listening and wait for the next part.